Hey y'all, Dave Mopper here. Welcome in. This pod is a compilation of lessons in fatherhood and leadership. I'm using it to explore the path to raising legends, and I'm sharing it all with you. Each episode provides a really raw and unique perspective on fatherhood, and it's what I've come to love about these conversations. There is something for every father who's in growth mode. All right, enjoy the combo. Mr. Cory Heitz, welcome to Whoa Dad, Go Dad.
Good to be here, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, looking good, sounding good. It's been a while since we saw each other. I feel like the last time we actually saw each other, Evergreen Rodeo.
That's
Last
right.
summer.
It was. You had your
Yeah,
family, I had my family. So that was a good time.
yeah, that was a treat. It's fun to get all cowboyed up with the little ones and living in Evergreen. What's that like? Up in the mountains, just what, 30 minutes, I'd say, outside of the Denver area, up in the foothills. Pretty dreamy place.
Yeah, we moved here from downtown DC, Washington, DC, and we tried to move to the West Highlands area of Denver, kind of to be walkable like we were in DC. And then we started looking at Wheat Ridge and started looking at downtown Golden. And then someone told us about Evergreen. And we came up here right before COVID and found the place. And we got an acre. It's quiet. I see mountains. I see elk in our yard. So it's been a complete 180 upgrade from downtown Washington, DC.
Amazing. What a contrast. Holy smokes. And
I
that had
know.
to have been, what'd you say? You moved here before COVID, 2019?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Exciting. Well,
So you're
welcome,
in,
welcome to Colorado. I'm sure you're from Colorado. You went to the Air Force Academy. So what's your history with Colorado?
yeah, well, that's it.
Yeah.
Came out here, went to the Air Force Academy for prep school, and then actually 4 years as a student. And I loved Colorado, and I knew I wanted to get back here in different circumstances. And once I got out of the military, I actually lived in my truck and drove all over the U.S. trying to scout out places that I might want to live one day. And it came down to, after visiting all 50 states, Colorado, Washington, and Oregon. And my wife, her family's from Nebraska. And it was not too hard of a transition coming from downtown DC to here because, now we're a 6 hour drive to her parents, my daughter's grandparents. And yeah, it's been great. Now, I love the Northwest still too, but Colorado's pretty special, as you know.
Yes, indeed. Hard to leave. I've been here I mean, middle of my young life, all through my adult life, and centrally located. Can't complain. Adventure everywhere. So maybe
Hmm.
give us a little bit of, for the listeners, a little bit of history on who the man Cory Heitz is. You went to Air Force Academy prep school for 4 years as a college student. Who were you leading, like going into that? What was your mindset and intention? And then coming out of it, where did it take you?
Yeah, so I grew up in Parkersburg, West Virginia, because my parents, they met at West Virginia University. And Parkersburg, West Virginia is a small river town in between my dad's parents and my mom's parents. And we lived there for the first 11 years and then moved to Lexington, Kentucky. And I lived there from age 11 to 18. And yeah, my goal growing up was to play Division I basketball because I had five members of my family before me played D1, right? So my dad's 7 feet tall. He played at West Virginia, played pro, had other uncles and family members. So I was kind of a D1 or bust kid. And yeah, coming out of high school in Kentucky, I was on a really good team, backed up an All-American for 3 years, and went to play basketball at the Air Force Academy's prep school because the military academies wanted me. And then I stayed and went to Air Force, which was a good experience, very, very challenging. And graduated there in 2000 and became a communications officer upon graduation. And then during my 5 years of active duty, a little thing called 9/11 happened. And that kind of changed everything. I mean, I went to Air Force initially to play basketball and get a good education, have a job. And now, a war hit. And then a couple of years later, I'm actually deployed to the Middle East for 3 months,
Mm.
supporting special ops over there and kind of seeing what was going on TV in person. And then, got out in 2005, lived as a hippie for about 3 years in my truck overseas up in Canada and grew my hair long, beard long, and did that till about 2008 and then started working with my dad in the family business. And then, yeah, now we're here in 2025 in Evergreen, Colorado.
What was the family business?
So at the time, we were doing investment banking with a little bit of real estate thrown in, but the real estate took over, and we would take polluted properties or problem properties, fix the problems, fix the pollution, and then put them back on the market. So we did that in Kentucky and Ohio, real niche stuff. Um, but in the meantime, yeah, I was helping kids go to prep school just like I did, and helping them go from prep school to college. And then that accidentally turned into a business about 9 years ago. So still do the industrial real estate development in the Midwest. And then we'll talk about my company, Prep Athletics. I help families from around the world now find prep schools for basketball. And that I did that for fun for a while. Like I said, it accidentally turned into an international consulting company. And now that takes up, it could take every hour of my day if I let it. And it's great that it does because I love it. I just love what I do. I love helping families find out about this prep school world and connect to the right fitting prep schools. And you can see like kids making certain decisions will have their lives changed forever. So
Incredible.
yeah.
Well, I want to get to that, but I almost want to hear what the experience of becoming a father has been for you, right? Knowing that you got two kids, ages 7 and 4, just imagining what it's like to raise, for you to raise them with a little bit of history that you've just shared with us and our time together, the conversations we've had are just like it's you're setting them up for success. I know it. No doubt about it, right? But what do you feel like has been the almost the biggest surprise, the most unexpected, maybe the hardest part of fatherhood in the 7 years in that role for you?
Yeah, I initially thought, Dave, that I wanted to be have a boy first, right? To teach basketball, to, be rough and tumble with, to carry on the family name. And yeah, my 7 and 4 year old, they're both girls. So we didn't find out on my first daughter what the sex was until she was born. And I remember my wife and I kind of were talking to her belly, thinking it was a boy. That's kind of the feeling we had. And right there in the delivery room, when they pulled her out, I was looking down. I was like, wow, infant penises look weird. I can barely see it. And the doctor's like, it's a girl. So then I was like, who cares if it's a boy or girl? Like, I love this little peanut more than anything in the world. So I didn't want to know how much love he could have. You just can't know until you have a kid, right? I think most dads would understand that. One of the things that's interesting is now watching certain commercials or certain movies affect me in a certain way. Like every Pixar movie now, I'm bawling at the end. To where previous to kids, like I could watch Toy Story and be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, good movie." Now my wife and I joke, and it's like it's coming. And every adult movie that Disney puts out, like the point to where parents are going to lose it, right? Yeah, you get it. So I didn't expect to be that emotional now. So I've really become more, yeah, emotional. Like Wicked, I hear that song from Wicked now. I get emotional when I hear it in the car, and I have to like bite my lip so they don't see me crying. But like, I would never have gotten emotional from like something like that in the past, right? So that's really changed. What's been hard is just you worry now. Like my grandma used to worry all the time. My mom wasn't that big of a worrier, nor was my dad, which was great. But like I can't, they're still young. Young ones are not out in the world yet, like teenagers are out, with everyone else in humanity. They're under my roof, so I can control a lot. But I can feel like the worry coming out more and more, and that's why I feel the pressure to kind of get them ready for the world. So when they do leave the house upon graduation, they're ready to not just succeed, but thrive,
No doubt.
right? And then be little leaders as well. So I didn't know there'd be that kind of pressure either, but I'm not a tiger dad. My wife's not a tiger mom either. We're not those type of people, but it's just like, you just want to make sure they're okay. Right. And every little thing, like they're eating too much sugar, if they're whining about this, like you wonder, are they going to be okay as adults? When you think back on your own childhood of like all the ups and downs you went through, we turned out fine,
Sure.
but it's the whole nature versus nurture argument, Dave. And like, how much is just inside them already upon delivery? And how much of it can my wife and I really shape and mold? And no one seems to have the answer on that. So it's just, it's scary, but exciting at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, big time. And I wonder your mindset with two daughters versus say if you had two boys is different, right? You already give me some anecdotes on even tapping into the emotional aspects of life in a movie. That's a little bit different. What else has shifted in terms of how you're stewarding or shepherding your children? Because, they're two girls versus boys. Is there a distinction, or you're equipping them the same way you would? What would you say?
I think my wife and I are sharing different duties, right? She's nurturing, she's very loving, and I am trying to kind of prep them for the outside world. Not like the movie Hannah, right? Where the guy's turning his daughter into a operative that can kill people, just prep them for what's going to be in the world. Good gosh, 13 years from now, we have no idea, right? It's moving so fast. But my credo is kind of like, I want them to be kind. I want them to have grit, and I want them to have business sense, like a 101 business sense, right? Like if they have that and they go out into today's world, I think they'll succeed in whatever they want to do, right? Whether it's being a teacher, a lawyer, working overseas in a country, like doing NGO work, like if they have those skill sets, they're going to be all right. And they are kind. Business sense will come. Like I've already taught them about how to do gigs around the house to kind of earn allowance versus me just giving it to them. I got them trying to think about like, hey, we could sell this for a few bucks on eBay. And then grit, like that's the constant thing I'm trying to figure out raising them is like, how do I make sure they're going to go out in the world and handle when something goes wrong? And a couple things I've been doing with that is first, I've enrolled both girls in jujitsu, right? First girl did it for about 6 months, which is fine. I didn't care if she did it longer. I just wanted her to try it. I wanted her to feel what a body was like on top of her. I wanted to feel it as like being pinned, what uncomfortableness felt like. And I didn't want her scared of contact. Like some girly girls like just don't want to be in sports, or that might be a stereotype, but that's like the thing I remember from the old days is there were girls and there were girls that would be, rough and tumble a little bit. I wanted my daughter to make sure she could handle physical contact. She did it for 6 months. She didn't want to do it anymore. That's fine. My 4-year-old, I just put her in jujitsu a month ago, and she's actually thriving in it and liking it. And part of the reason is I make sure I wrestle with my girls, right? Like I lay on them and I make sure they have to push me off. And I always make sure they win and get them off me, or they get out of a hole I put them in.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to do that with boys, right? And I'm just wondering, I'm just thinking to myself, and I don't know if I read this in a parenting book or just came up with it, but like I want them to just know what weight feels like and being physical and like having to move their muscles and not being scared of contact. So is that going to work or not? I don't know, right? We don't know how this is going to turn out, but they will always be in sports, right? I don't care if you're going to be a Division I athlete. I don't care if you get a college scholarship. You are going to always be moving around, whether it's a single sport, whether it's on a mountain, whether it's a team sport. Hopefully it's a team sport because you get a lot of benefits out of that. But they're always going to be doing something. And you will not hear me be that crazy dad, putting all our hopes and dreams into our kids, athletic career. But I do want them moving around. And there's some sports they hate, but they're going to finish it. There's some sports they like more, but we're going to throw a lot against the wall and see what they like. And once again, like I'm the sixth member of my family to play D1 basketball, right? That's 6 scholarships in our family. That's a lot of college money not paid for from bouncing a ball. I don't care if my daughters get scholarships or not. I'm not paying for college. They got to figure that out. But I want them to do something in life they're passionate about. And if it's basketball, great. That's a sport I know. It's a sport my family knows. I'll be able to help them with that. If it's something else outside my wheelhouse, so be it. I just want them to go at it full force and have a real love for it.
Yo, sounds fantastic. I'd love to see my little boy, 17 months old, putting him in some sort of, martial arts soon. I don't know. What's the right age? What do you think?
I think they start at 4,
Yeah.
which is still pretty young. I mean, they're just playing around. Like when they
Yeah.
put them in grapples or holds, they don't know what's going on. But
Right.
once again, they're just like pushing each other, one's on top of the other. Like that's all I care about right now. They like it. Then we'll put on a gi. Then we'll worry about getting belts and different things. But just be out there and have fun, right?
Right. So Cory, what informed your fatherhood credo, your mantra, your ethos? Meaning, what was it like growing up? How did your dad influence you? And then knowing that you went into the Air Force Academy and you told me you were running the leadership laboratory with some youngsters before you were really you were an adult, don't get me wrong, but before you were, fully employed and turning your life into a real life, you were, a young man teaching little kids how to be great leaders. Which aspects of life have you pulled forward and have informed who you are today as a father?
Yeah. So we'll go back to the beginning is like when we moved to Kentucky, we moved to a farm, right? So we had 10 acres and around us were these beautiful horse farms and we just had grass. And my dad growing up grew up on a farm. He was the middle of 5, right? And 3 of those 5 played D1 basketball, right? So they grew up on a tough ass farm with a tough ass dad. They didn't make much. I think my dad was in a field with a machete, taking out weeds, and he sliced open his shin needed stitches, and his dad was like, just bandage it up and get back out here. Where nowadays it'd be a 10 alarm fire with a kid if they did it. My dad's got a giant scar on his shin from this, right?
So. Huh.
So fast forward to this farm, right? And we turned this 10 acres, which was all woods, into like 10 acres that looked like a golf green, right? Because my dad was that maniacal about everything being perfect, everything being trimmed. And mind you, that's the last thing I wanted to do as a teenager, right? Was spend 14 hours on a tractor mowing this and then weed eating it. And I hated it so much until like 3 years ago, I had an epiphany of how great this was, right? Because here I am between sixth grade and 11th grade, sitting on a tractor through my teenage years with no phone, right? Just my FM radio and my tape player, thinking for 14 hours, right? And if we had drought, it might be every 3 weeks. If we had rain, it might be every week. And I'm so grateful for that now, Dave, because how many kids in the world sit and think for 14 hours? They can't. There's just too much stuff going on. So I don't know what happened, but something happened during that 14 hours over all those years, right? That I don't know, maybe I'm more patient now or whatever, but he was hardcore on me. Like I was getting up early on Sundays, early on Saturdays. There was no sleeping in. There was no back talking. Like I back talked or did anything. Up, you're grounded. Up, your car's taken away. Like my mom taught in an alternative school, so she dealt with borderline criminals every day. So I had her on one end, old school farm boy on the other. So it was really easy growing up in my household because things were black and white. There was no like negotiations. There was no wiggle room. And obviously we butted heads, but that got me to handle basic training pretty easily because when you have a 7 foot tall, 330 pounder yelling at you, right, and who runs your household, you get to basic training and it's a 5'9", 19-year-old yelling at you. It's nothing. A basketball coach yells at you. It's nothing, right? So was that the best way to grow up? I don't know, right? My dad could have been more nurturing and more loving, but it's the way it was. And mind you, now when we work together still, and he's got grandkids, we're a lot closer. He's a lot more mellow. There's no trauma there. I wouldn't change anything, but it is what created grit in me to where when I got to basic training, got to the hardcore rigors of the Air Force Academy, I could handle everything that got thrown at me. I might not have liked it, might have had some bumps along the way, but I knew like, oh, I'm not going to quit, right? I didn't grow up a quitter. So I've got that background, right? That's what I was raised with, pretty hardcore. So now fast forward to me having daughters, right? Oh, and I'll throw in there too what you mentioned. When I was a senior at the Air Force Academy, I led 35 kids through basic training in the woods, right? First 3 weeks of basic training at the academy, you learn how to shine shoes, you have a lot of briefings. The next 3 weeks, you go out in the woods and you learn how to put up a tent, shoot guns. So I was in charge of those kids when I was 22 years old, right? And I was in charge of getting them graduated from basic training and ready to go as freshmen at the Air Force Academy. So I know how to train kids and use pain and use threats and use all the stuff the military used, right? So that's my background. Dad on a farm, being in the military for 5 years at the academy, then being in the military 5 years as an officer. And then, so how do I bring that to my kids now? Well, it's a balance, right? My wife is very loving, very sweet. People love being around her. She's great, right? I married a good woman. My daughters are lucky to have her as a mom. And I'm constantly trying to instill grit, like we just talked about, but not like be a drill sergeant and just, be on the girls hardcore with little things around the house. And do you know who Ryan Holiday is?
Oh, yeah.
So I get his daily dad email, which I suggest everyone listening to this get. And it's a stoic lesson for the day in the terms of fatherhood. And I swear, some I get are timed for the perfect point of that day of what I need to hear. And I try to mellow and share love, but part of my fear is my kids aren't going to go up with grit. And if they don't have grit in this world, they're going to be in the basement with me and they're just going to falter. And I've got members of my family, extended family, that are living in their parents' basement right now. And it just terrifies me, right? So my biggest fear is not like a serial killer or this and that. It's that my kids, I don't give them the skill set they need to go out in the world and fly, right? So do I be more drill sergeant and be more hardcore with them, right? Which means they'll listen to what I say, but they might come to hate me. Or am I more loving to where that might be weakness and they don't get the grit they need to handle adversity? That's kind of the constant thing that's going on in my head that I talk to other parents about, that I talk to my wife about. And, you can't give too much love, but I've seen people also get too enabled, and that's where they end up in their parents' basement, right? So it's a lot of talking from the beginning to where we are now, but like my parents did a hell of a job raising me. Mind you, it was hard and there's some pros and cons to that, but like, how do I now get to this side with my kids and kind of balance it all out? No one has the answers. There's no book written specifically for me
Yes.
or for you, but like that's my biggest challenge.
Well, it's a worthy tussle. And as you're saying, it's kind of the tussle perhaps we're all going through and trying to figure out our own unique blend of compassion or love and, you know, rigor and tenacity or grit or, hard lines and so forth. And where do we fall? And yeah, there's no one way. There is no one book customized to Dave Momper or Cory Heitz.
Right.
There's plenty of books out there, including Ryan Holiday's, his a lot of his work that is informative. But I love this notion of grit, though. I mean, as one of the ultimate characteristics for humans to have in their back pocket at all times, to pull it out and deploy it into the world. Pretty obvious how it's useful. But I mean, just expand a little bit on how you see that being so fundamental, so essential. And second question to that is almost, do you see creating grit in your daughters? Do you see that process being different than if you had two boys? Or is the, I don't know, the tactic the same? So why is grit important? What does it really do for us as humans from your side of things? And then do we create it differently for boys or girls?
Yeah, I would argue grit's the most important thing. I think it's more important than book smarts, truth be told, right? If you and I did not have grit, we would not be sitting where we are today, right? I wouldn't have played basketball. I don't know what I'd be doing, right? But basic training in the military, they're trying to weed out the people that don't have grit. In fact, they should have never gotten in there in the first place, but they're constantly trying to weed you out. Basketball has tryouts. They're trying to weed out the kids that don't have it all through life. They're females looking for men. They're men looking for women. And you're constantly trying to figure out which one's going to be the best for you, which employee to hire. And are you going to want to have someone that just folds when something not even that hard gets in the way? Right? Big problem that a lot of your listeners and you and I have heard about are snowplow parents and helicopter parents, right? They're the problem. They're clearing out all this adversity for kids so they don't have to feel it, so they can go through life happy. And our job is not to keep our kids happy, it's to keep them safe, right? So how essential is it? I think it's the most essential thing. Look, I can be loving, I can smile, I can never yell, I can never ground my daughters and still instill grit in them, right? It's just I'm working on my delivery, drill sergeant versus loving. In fact, in basic training, it was worse to be whispered in your ear than be yelled at, because the whispering's like that's where he'd say things he probably wasn't supposed to say or she wasn't supposed to say. That was worse than just getting yelled at with someone spitting in your face. So to me, it's the most essential thing. And I could be wrong. Look, I'm going to evolve too as a parent and dad, and I'll learn a lot over these next 14 years. But right now, with the generation, and mind you, I work with a lot of youth and their families these days, right? So I'm seeing the kids that have grit and how like, oh, they're thriving. And I'm seeing the kids whose parents handle everything. And it's like, I don't know. And like I said earlier, we've got members of our family living with their parents, and one of them is in his 30s, and it just I don't think he had the grit growing up. So to me, it's so essential because if you have grit, you can figure it all out. In fact, there's a term in the parenting books. I think it's called figure it out ability. It's like a word that's been made up. But if you can figure things out,
Yeah.
doesn't matter the industry, Dave, your industry, my industry, life, you're going to be fine. And it does not matter what your degree is. So to me, it's the most essential thing because look, you handle adversity. That's how muscles get stronger, right? That's how you get smarter. That's how you get through and you feel accomplished. So to me, unless you okay, let me ask you this. Is there anything parenting more important than creating grit? Am I missing something here?
Uh, it seems like a really safe gamble to focus on grit. And I heard it put nicely the other day. This person on, is a Instagram, a quick reel. Someone's asking them what's the most important thing, and would whether you had boys or girls, and the person said, "I want my kiddos to be able to do hard things." I'm like, yeah, exactly, because
Yeah.
the world's beautiful, the world's magical. It's but it's also chaotic. It's dangerous in certain ways. It's hard, right? The world isn't easy inherently. We can make it easy, based on our approach. But the world is full of uncertainty and chaos and madness and friction and all that. But if we can equip them to do hard things and navigate all of that, we don't need to worry about. I like how you said we do want to keep them safe. At least right now, your duty is safety for them. Eventually, they'll want to maintain safety beyond your tutelage, and the best way to navigate the danger of life is to have grit. So I'm with you. Grit every day, all day. If nothing else, grit.
Yeah, and here's a couple of things. Like if they break arm or get scrapes, doesn't I'm glad, right? Those are life's tattoos. I don't want them to hurt their head. Like you can't fix this,
Yes.
but everything else, get scrapes, get bruises, get bumps.
Yeah.
And secondly, we travel a lot, right? And I love it when a flight gets canceled or something doesn't go right, right? It's a good challenge for me to keep it together. And I just tell the girls, like, look, this is life, right? Like you always got to be flexible. You got to figure something out. Like, what are we going to do now that this flight is canceled? Are we going to freak out? Are we going to cry? Or are we just going to say, all right, this is life. Let's adjust. What's the next step? Here's what we're going to do. Okay. Now, to go back to your question, is it different for boys or girls? I don't know. I'm not raising boys, but I would assume just by coaching that you could get on boys a little bit harder. But my wife is going to have to deal with, the female to female relationship as the girls get older and start going through puberty. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm going to have a different relationship with them, right? As the dad. Yeah. I think if it was if I had boys in the house, we'd probably, I'm assuming here, we'd probably butt heads a little more like my dad and I did. And that's evolution, right? You are genetically supposed to want to be out of the house when you hit puberty, right? That's how cavemen were off, procreating at 14 on their own. And so it's supposed to happen. So I know my girls are going to go through it. Who knows what that's going to be like, but I think boys would be different. But once again, every kid's got a different personality. And once again, is it nature or nurture? I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out at the end of this experiment,
Oh, I love that you call it an experiment. It's obviously more than that, but it is absolutely, we are experimenting along the way.
That's right.
I want to make a quick observation in this distinction on grit, where there's physical grit, where you hurt yourself and you push yourself through it, or a workout, or an affection that we both have is for ice baths. Mm-hmm. That's physical grit. It's some mental too, and then there's the mental nature of grit, where it's not as much forcing something. I feel like physical grit is like getting through, pushing through, versus mental or emotional grit is almost acceptance and not getting triggered. And like the airport example, like, well, what is there to do? You can't change the whole airline system, and whatever the reason is, how could you even influence it? You almost have to accept it. So grit in these different domains is important. And then I think that might even, maybe it's fair to say boys are a little bit more physical. It's not completely the case, but it's a general rule. So maybe they're going to boys would discover the value of grit through physical means more than girls. And then girls might discover grit more through emotional, mental, challenges than boys. But I think, who knows? To your point, like you don't have boys to compare and contrast. But I just want to play with that realm of there's grit at large, and then there's these domains of grit. What's your reaction to that?
All right. So I read Angela Duckworth's book, Grit, right?
There you go.
I don't know if you've read that or not. The thesis sentence, but I'll break the whole book down for you. And she says, people are gritty when they do things they enjoy doing.
Okay.
Right. So if it's something you don't like to do, and I'm like, Dave, you have to do this right now, you might suffer through it, but you might not come back. But if I'm saying, Dave, I want you to do this task and you love it, no matter what it is, you're going to finish it, no matter what adversity comes your way or what challenges, because you love to do it. So that's a thing, we got to figure out in our household too. Is like, hey, you need to do these chores and I need you to do them, before you can watch TV or whatever. And if they don't want to do them, they're going to drag their feet. It could take 2 hours. Right. So that's the big thing there is, all right, is that grit or not? But look, I also tell my kids, like, you're going to have to do things in life you don't want to do and you don't like. Mom and dad do it every day. It's just part of being a human being. What kind of attitude you're going to have with that? So yeah, grit comes in real handy when you like what you're doing.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Grit plus positivity, anything's possible. Grit plus resistance and hesitation, Yeah, you're kind of suffering through things, I suppose. So,
Hmm.
so I mean, grit at large, a major component to your parenting ethos, and whether it's mental grit or physical grit, how perfect is athletics for our kiddos to experience and maybe harness grit? So your realm, you're an athlete, you're now coaching and advising athletes, high school, I would imagine, middle school, high school athletes. You're raising athletes. So let's get into this athletic realm. And, you know, is there any better place than athletics to foster grit?
Maybe outdoor stuff like camping or, backpacking and
Cool.
hiking. I think that could be pretty gritty. But no, I think sports is a great avenue. And you've got two different dynamics here. You can do a team sport, right? Where you learn to work together. You've got all those interpersonal dynamics taking place, which are sometimes good, sometimes bad. You always learn something from them. And then you got the individual sports too, where you don't have anyone to rely on. Like my college basketball coach used to stress that tennis was the best sport for basketball players, right? Because you're out there, you got to do hand-eye coordination, you're moving laterally and front to back. And when things go wrong, there's no coach, there's no teammates. It's just you out there in the court figuring it out for yourself, right? So yes, for me, athletics can provide a lot of the stuff, and you got to do a lot of stuff in training, in the weight room, with your diet, with your sleep, with your, getting your IQ higher up by studying the game. All that stuff goes on when the lights aren't even on in the arena, right? And who has time for that? Well, you better love the game and have grit if you want to spend all that time to make sure you're performing right on the court or on the field, right? Because that's only a small part of it is the game, right? The actual game itself. So to me, yeah, that's one of the best ways to fast track it. And look, like right now with my 7-year-old, she's done soccer, lacrosse, swimming, jujitsu, basketball. She's in piano now. She's done bike riding camp, canoeing. So we've thrown a lot at the wall. And she doesn't like basketball as much, doesn't like jujitsu, didn't like soccer from the first minute we did it, but she's kind of digging lacrosse, right? So to me, it's throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and seeing what's sticking. Now, my younger one, she can only do so many things. I think she'll be a little bit more athletic, but I think sports can do so much, right?
So then I was thinking about, as I'm stepping into these years where Leo can begin playing sports, and for anybody out there with kids not quite at that age, he's kicking a soccer ball around, he's throwing a baseball and a bouncy ball, left-handed and right-handed, by the way, and it's like, I wonder what what's going to be his passion. He's riding a bike everywhere. He's scooting down the hill, our driveway, on this little scoot bike. So he's certainly showing, athletic aptitude, but he's only 17 months. So who knows? But what's the approach for those who have youngsters and you want to embrace athleticism? And I mean, I could guess for one, it's just get them into some things, variety, experiment, have fun with it, and let them experience, a slew of possible places to spend their energy, and then distill and hone. But besides that, is there a way to think about fostering athleticism early on in our kiddos' lives that, from everything you're seeing with your own two daughters and all of your clients and the families you're supporting, is there a best practice to get people on an athletic track?
Yeah, you named it. You said exactly it. They throw a lot of stuff at the wall. Worst case scenario, they don't like it. Worst case, they might meet a friend, right? They might hear something from a coach that sticks with them the rest of their life. They might learn something physiologically, right, through kicking a soccer ball that might help them in their future sports. And it keeps them out of trouble. It helps them sleep good at night. So to me, like, have fun as long as you can,
Mm.
right? Trust me, I deal with parents that have trainers for kids in elementary school, right? And that's a great way to burn kids out. So to me, yeah, good players get good specializing, but there's a lot of kids in the NFL. There's a percentage of kids in the NFL, or not kids, but players in the NFL who played multiple sports in high school, and I think it's like 80%. So it's good to play multiple sports just so your body doesn't get burnout overusing the same moves over and over again. But you named it, man. Have fun for as long as you can, because
Mm.
once it starts getting serious, it can be a grind. You're spending money, You're traveling every weekend. You're driving all over creation for practices and this tournament. Are you on the right team? Are you not on the right team? Only do that if things get serious, and then make sure your kid wants it. Because if you're doing it and your kid doesn't want it or is not bought in, that's where you're going to have a lot of resentment coming in. But fun, fun, fun for a lot of the first years.
Perfect. So that's almost the first stage of that athletic path is just have fun and experiment and variety. And then the second stage, I don't know, can you name the second stage? It's roughly what age and what would you call that stage where it's like honing the path, if you will? Because
Yeah.
I almost want to explore like what are the pitfalls of that stage, and then what are the best practices that you're seeing. So what would you name it? You know, the next stage after play and variety. What is it?
I'm not sure if there's a name for it, but
Sure,
look,
but
if you're a good supportive parent, you're going to follow what your kid's into,
right.
right? So let's say he's playing baseball, he or she's playing baseball, football, and basketball. Look, you can play all three sports all the way through high school. The challenge is if you want to play at the next level is you're missing a lot of time into each individual sport that's spent on the other two, right? And I see it with football players and basketball players. Like football players, uh, they do about 6 months of training that's not spent on the basketball court. Now, there are super athletes that can handle this stuff, and they're very rare, and they're out there. You probably had one in your high school. Everyone has one that they know of. But follow your kid's lead. Like I said, you see failure happen and resentment when a parent tries to push a kid into a certain track that they don't love as much. But a kid will usually tell you like which one they want. Now I got a kid may or may not hire me to be their consultant. He's a soccer player and he's a basketball player. All right. And he's a senior in high school. He's done well at both, but you can't play both in college, right? It's just too difficult. So he's like, I want to play basketball in college. All right. He came to that conclusion, right? Even as a 12th grader.
Mm,
So I just wouldn't force things, right? And just
mhm,
let the kids play as much as possible. And if they want to do two sports, great. Just know training in your main sport is going to suffer because you're not spending time on it. But you're getting benefits of playing with other coaches, playing with other teammates, using different skill set athletically and mentally. That usually translates very well to the other sport. Nick
mm,
Saban, the head coach of Alabama, used to love his players to be multi-sport athletes.
mm.
There's a reason for it.
Yep. I can see it gives you a broader perspective and yeah, the almost the diversity of movements and thinking patterns, like it just reinforces everything, I suspect. So maybe
Hmm.
I just almost want to pause and zoom out and describe what your actual role is as a athletic prep school consultant. Is it, what do we call you? And what is the real deliverable or the offering that people are hiring you for?
Yeah, I like to call myself a prep school concierge,
Hmm,
right?
cool.
So, like I said, I'm not playing D1 basketball without a post-grad year at the Air Force Academy's prep school, right? It just wasn't good enough. I'm 6'7", 195 when I graduated high school. And, you know, I got recruited to be as tall as my dad, right? And my other uncles, right? It had never happened. I've been 6'7" since 16, but maybe one day I'll keep growing. My cousin was 7 feet tall. He played his senior year of high school at a prep school in Maine and then played 4 years at Purdue and then 14 years in the NBA,
Mm,
right? So without prep school, I'm not playing D1 for free. He's not playing in the NBA. So it changed our family's trajectory, right? 2008, 17 years ago, I helped a kid from Canada, where I was living at the time, go to the same prep school my cousin went to. And after that year of prep school, this kid got a full NAI scholarship. Then I'm coaching in Kentucky. I've got 8 kids I helped get into prep school, 7 go D1,
mm,
right? So I'm on to something here. For kids that aren't getting seen by colleges, maybe if they do a post-grad year like I did, they'll get more options.
mm,
Fast forward, I started visiting prep schools, started helping kids internationally. And like I said, accidentally, it turned into an international consulting company. So what I do is I help families from around the world. If they want to go to prep school in America, there's about 150 of them out there that offer a basketball academic experience. And they hire me to take that 150 and narrow it down to the right fitting 3 to 5 for that individual family, right? Depending on how good the player is on the court, what their academics are, what kind of experience they want during their time there, and then finances. And I take all that, find the right 3 to 5 schools. And if they pick any of those schools, they're going to be in a good position. But I want them to pick the best fit for them. And my advice to families is that's usually based on the coach, right? And which coach the player connects with the most. So I am like a prep school basketball guidance counselor for families all around the world.
Cool. And now prep school, does it fully replace not all of high school? It's like the last year or two. Is that accurate? Or what? Where does prep school fall in our journey? Because I didn't go to prep school. I
Yeah.
didn't play, I didn't play D1 basketball, that's for sure. But, give me the sequence of the flow to get into to D1.
Yeah. Some prep schools are ninth grade through 12th grade,
Mhm.
right? Some are ninth through 12th, but have a post grad year or a fifth year. And there's one out there that's just post grad boys, right? So they're mostly high schools, and the only difference is they have dorms, and people live on campus from all over the world.
Cool. It's probably a really fun experience for a lot of kids. That's
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the best years of my life. And like I told you, I just dropped off this morning one of my prep school roommates, and we just went snowboarding for 2 days, and he's one of my best friends, right? So that you can have, sure, I'm talking to families about basketball and academics, but you can make lifelong connections that are more valuable than the sport you're playing.
sure. So bear with me in my naivete here. Prep school, preparing us for what? Right? And I can
College.
see how, for college, yes, but D1, you're kind of distilling down, the best of the best via a prep school to get to, in this case, it's a basketball funnel. Makes sense, right? So, what is different about prep school than regular high school?
Yeah, good question. So mind you too, not every player goes D1 coming out of prep school. They can go
Fair.
D2, D3, NAIA, JUCO. Some do that post grad year and they decide they don't want to play basketball in college, which is a good thing as well.
Mhm.
But what are the benefits? Basketball, you're going to be around better teammates, most likely, better competition, better coach. You're going to live on campus with a gym, where if you go to a normal high school, you might have to find gym time. Yeah, here you walk on campus to the gym. It's usually open. There's a weight room, same thing. So basketball, there's a lot of advantages. And colleges would rather have a player from a prep school because they've already been away from mom and dad. They've already been in tougher classrooms. They've already had better coaching, better competition. So a kid's going to be more likely to succeed in college after coming from a prep school because he's been prepped on the court.
Makes
Same with
sense.
the classroom.
In the
Tougher
classroom.
academics, smaller classroom sizes. A lot of these prep schools offer AP and college classes.
Hmm.
So once again, you're going to get to a college, you already know how to study on your own. You already, been challenged. That should be smoother. Third thing is emotional maturity, right? So when you leave home for the first time, you get homesick, right? And who better to handle a homesick kid than a prep school who's been doing this some for over 250 years,
Wow.
right? So you get that out of your system. You learn how to get up on your own for early morning workouts without mom and dad waking you up. You turn in assignments without mom or dad breathing down your neck. You learn how to do laundry, basic stuff. But once again, you learn all that stuff at prep school. So once again, you get to a college campus, you're hitting the ground running when your freshman teammates and classmates are missing mom and dad and don't know how to do, whites and colors in the laundry. And then
Right.
lastly, it's cultural. Like I said, I met my good friend at this prep school. You're going to be around kids from every time zone, different continents, different beliefs, socioeconomic backgrounds. And my roommate at prep school was a Navajo Native American,
Hmm.
first Navajo to play Division I basketball. And we stayed up the whole first night of basic training, asking each other questions, right? I asked him if he grew up on a reservation, if he lived in a teepee, stuff I only knew from the movies. He was just as confused by me, Dave, being a Catholic kid from Kentucky, right? Fast forward 20 years, he was at my wedding, I was in his, right? And we're not meeting anywhere else but prep school. So, yes, we're talking about basketball, right? And getting to that next level, the dream. But you're going to become a young man or a young woman doing the emotional maturity. You're going to meet some cool, interesting people that could be lifelong friends. You're going to have good academics baseline when you hit the college classrooms. So it's more than just basketball. You're going to become a much more holistic human being once you get out of the prep school.
Amazing. We could call it grit school, by the way. It's not just hearing, you're actually helping people foster that grit that we talked about in a way. And what I'm really hearing is it's, uh, even though you're helping people become more wholesome through prep school, you're helping them get focused and intentional about their trajectory, right? Versus perhaps the average high school, still worthy, but a little bit more broad, a little bit more casual. Prep school is a focused, intentional path to a particular destination. In your case, for your clients at least, the destination is hopefully the basketball court. And
That's correct.
perhaps are they all at that level of high? They're I'm imagining you're working with high school age kids or even younger?
Pretty much high school. Every now and then I'll get an eighth grader that's looking for ninth grade, but that's the
Yeah.
rarity.
Yeah. And is every single kid you're working with going, no, I want to play in the NBA. That's my thing. Or are they just going, I just want to compete. I want to keep playing. I want to get a good education. I got my sights set on business, but what's the mindset of the average the prep kid, the high school prep kid that you're working with? How big are they thinking at that stage of their life?
Yeah, I'd say 75% that reach out have the goal of playing D1, just like I did, right? I get
Yeah.
it. So I can talk to those kids. 25% of them realize, like, hey, I know I'm a D3 player. That's fine. I just want to get better, have better options, be better prepared for D3. And then you've got a lot in there. 25% want to play in the NBA, which I get. But like being around our friend Paul, being around my cousin and his whole life, like you got a better chance of getting struck by lightning twice than playing 1 second in the NBA.
Amazing.
It's easy. I think there's been more congressmen than NBA players since the yeah. It's so hard to get to that level. But I've got a parent of a kid that's not very good at a prep school now. He's barely playing on the JV team, and the mom's calling the coach like, "Hey, if he doesn't like start varsity, like how's he going to make it to the NBA?" And he's not even starting JV, right? So it's just I forgive families like this because they just don't know. But I support every kid's dream, but I also know how hard it is to get one to the D1 level
Mm.
and two to the NBA level. You'll see guys be March Madness heroes, don't even get a sniff at an NBA tryout,
Mm.
right? So yeah, it's constantly what I'm doing with families is just shaking them a little bit and saying, hey, you might spend this money, you might go to a prep school, you might not get a scholarship. You might not even get a school you like, but you have to bet on yourself and know there's no crystal ball and you don't know how this is going to turn out. Some of my clients who go to prep school, they end up with D1 scholarships they had no idea were coming. Some, do about what you thought. Some might not get what they wanted and they're disappointed, but like we don't know how this process is going to work. So I'm constantly dealing with families that are unsatisfied or else they'd stay with the position they've currently got or the offers they got, but they're trying to bump up and level up.
Yep.
And I try to do the best I can with them. But once again, my disclaimer is always, I can put you in front of the right prep school and you can go there. Who knows what's going to happen?
Right. So what does a prep school tuition generally look like?
The cheapest full price is $38,000 at Fork Union, and it goes up to $95,000 for IMG. But the New England prep schools are about $55,000 to $80,000. Now, doesn't mean every family pays that. That's where I help families. There's deals to be made. There's certain values for certain players, which I help them with. But yeah, sticker price is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, nuts. But in a way, it's an investment to a pretty big ROI if you get into D1 and you land a scholarship and but again, no guarantees. But are your clients approaching it like almost like an investment, or is it a cost in their mind?
Depends. It depends. Some families really press hard, and they save for college, and they're going to use this for college or for prep school, this college money,
Mhm.
and you just don't know what it's going to be, right? So they feel the pressure of that year. I've got another player. It's one of my best players ever. And, he's got D1 offers already, but he's going to do a post-grad year to see if he can bump up to mid-major or high major. And his family is going to invest $30,000. Now, the family has money. They could pay more than $30,000, but that's a fair price. And for this kid in today's day and age, he might go to a mid or high major and get $200,000 to sign with the college.
Mm.
So now we're not even talking free scholarship anymore, free education. Now we're talking
Right.
what's on top of that, and
Wow.
how much does a free scholarship even matter in today's day and age anymore?
True.
TBD, to be determined. So yeah,
Yeah.
this landscape's shifting pretty quickly. You got to keep up with it because now prep school coaches have to advise their good players on how to figure out NIL deals from colleges.
Wow. I mean, you don't have the crystal ball exactly, but what is your sense of how things look, say 5 years from now? How much is this puzzle changing? How quickly is it changing? What's the puzzle look like 5 years from now? Maybe 10
We're
years
in
from now?
we're in the wild west right now with NIL money, right? Which is name, image, and likeness, and that means how much money a kid can get from a school, right?
Mm.
Like really good, like the really good player this year is going to BYU. He's getting at least $7 million to go there next year.
Unreal.
Right?
As an 18-year-old, as a
Yeah,
19-year-old?
probably 19, but he told people, don't recruit me unless you have $7 million. So who knows how much BYU paid him? They might have paid him more. right? Other kids can get less. Like I know a walk-on at New Mexico is getting $20,000. So it's a whole wild west on like how this works because there's no
Mhm.
salary caps. No one really publishes this stuff. Um, so a lot of kids now are hiring agents to help them figure out their college choice. And these are your better players, Dave, not your D3 players. So agents has changed the game. 5 years from now, I still see the prep school game going strong. So my lane of business, I think, is going to be good because more and more people internationally and within the U.S. are learning about this option and they're seeing how vital it is to have an advocate like a prep school coach.
Mhm.
But the college game, I mean, there's the rumors I'm hearing now is that the NCAA is doing whatever it can to keep the Power Five conferences in the NCAA and not breaking off on their own.
Well, what's
So
your, maybe this is a philosophical question, maybe a literal question, but what's your assessment of infusing money into this level of the game versus leaving it how it was? Is there more integrity, more a higher level of competition? Is this capitalism getting into the mix and muddying things up? I mean, what's your assessment of it?
I'm torn, right? Because the game's not as pure anymore, right? Because kids are now not worrying about what the academic department's like or what the chow hall is like. They're just wondering how much you're going to pay me if I come here. So that's a little bit, not as pure. And you've got kids transferring all the time. So like we follow Kentucky and West Virginia, both rosters last year with new coaches were completely turned over, right? So you got to learn new players every year. Are they going to stick around? Are they going to go somewhere else? So I don't like that as much. But Johnny Manziel, right? That young man made so many millions of dollars for Texas A&M and got zero from it. In fact, his life was kind of ruined from the fame and everything. So I see he should have gotten paid. Same with Reggie Bush at USC. So in the old days, this stuff was done under the table with the good players. Now it's done kind of in the open.
Mm.
So I can't give you a good answer because I see both sides clearly. Yes, these players should be paid because they're bringing schools million and it's capitalistic and free market and tennis players and golf players do it. But it's become more mercenaries now. And I don't think these kids care as much about, the school on the front of the jersey as they do how much is in their bank account.
Themselves, yeah.
So I'm torn, right? It's not a clear answer. And a scholarship now, they used to say like, well, you get a 6-figure scholarship. But these athletic departments in schools are making tens of millions of dollars on these kids' back. Aren't they entitled to some of it since they're the ones putting their limbs out there? I don't know. What do you think on it? You tell me.
Yeah, not being as close to the situation as you as an outsider or just in a casual observer. I mean, I appreciate the idea that a university is making a boatload of dough and abundance mentality. Like people should get some of that, you know? And then it's like, well, where do we draw the line? Should high schoolers get paid for, are they bringing in money somehow? Like, and then, yeah. So I don't know. I like this. I like the purity argument and just keeping things just sincere and straightforward and just letting people learn the game, but it's not the world we live in. So considering reality, I can see, and just to think about as a 20-year-old human being based on your talents and your grit and your upbringing and like your focus and persistence, that all of a sudden you can actually earn a living or make money in your college years. Like there's such a massive juxtaposition than like me. I went to CU Boulder. I wasn't an athlete in terms of like a college athlete. I was athletic, but it wasn't, I was up there paying. I might have got a couple little micro scholarships, but I was paying my way. So it would be really interesting to have pursued college differently in my mind and my activities if I knew maybe 7 million bucks was on the line.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This is like you said, the Wild West. It's a whole new realm for everybody. And good for those kids for cashing in, man. I mean, like, can you imagine? And I don't know. I'm just picturing some of these kids that come out of, just average homes or less than average homes, and they're all of a sudden a dominant force on the field or the court, and they're calling in some chips. So, hell yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. So I'm thinking about, between where your kiddos are at, 7 and 4, my kid 17 months, they're in the play zone, just variety. And then juxtapose that with the kiddos you're working with, high school kids on their way to hopefully, a D1, maybe a pro legacy. That'd be pretty amazing. In between, whatever that stage is that we didn't necessarily formally name, but where there's a bit of a focus. Your kids have decided their interests are maybe these two or three sports or this one particular sport. What are you noticing? I mean, what are all the available tactics that are available to parents these days to equip and empower their kids to be great athletes? And I mean, I heard one earlier, like you've got a personal trainer for an elementary kid. Like, what? Is that what you said earlier?
Oh yeah.
So there's that level. What other versus just grinding it out on the court, back maybe in your time, in my time, what are parents now doing? What's available to actually set a really focused athletic kid up for the greatest success they can have? It's still up to them, of course, as you said, and we don't know how it's going to unfold, but at least we give them the best chance possible. What are you seeing that's out there?
Well, look, the youth sports industry is now it's doubled in the past couple of years of what like are being offered to families, offered to teams. It's nuts. Like I've got a dad I've talked to who built a home gym for his son so he could get more training in. And guess what? Guess what? That kid is not as into it as his dad is, right? It's kind of Murphy's Law. But I mean, anything you want, like someone will sell it to you. So if you are really serious, is that middle ground, like you said, you've got kids that get strength coaches, you've got kids that have personal trainers, you've got speed coaches, you've got film sessions you can do and hire coaches to help you with that, nutritionists, sleep coaches, like you can go to the extremes. You do need to know what you're doing. So like you just said, grinding it out, right? You can practice hard, but you can also practice more surgically too, right? Like one thing I deal with in the prep school world is you've got places that'll claim like, hey, you can be in the gym 10 hours a day here. And the schools say you can be in the gym 9 hours here. Dave, if you do a 30-minute workout at game speed, you're gassed. And you've gotten a lot more out of that 30 minutes than you would 10 hours just kind of going half speed. So if you know what to do and you've got a good coach or good trainer, and then you do a lot of that on your own, you'll be fine. But there's also other modalities and trainers you can hire if you've got the means and the will to keep refining your game. I'll tell you this, when I do get film and when prep school coaches get film on these players, you can tell right away if the kid can play or not. And some of them have had all the bells and whistles. Usually the kid with all the bells and whistles aren't as good as the kids that just might have that natural ability, right? Like my cousin that made it to the NBA, we talk in our family, we don't know how he made it, right? Like he didn't have this crazy Kobe Bryant work ethic. He just had like a sixth sense of how to move his body on the court, how to make the open pass, how to shoot it. He had a soft touch. He and I grew up going to the same camp, same DNA. Like how come he made it to that high level and I didn't? And we still don't know. On my podcast, I talked to plenty of prep school coaches that have coached NBA players. And it's always, I always ask them, like, what's the secret sauce? Hell, our friend Paul Shirley made it to the NBA. We ask him, what's the secret sauce? And it's that ability to work when no one else wants to work. So they constantly have this drive and this obsession that's not always healthy to keep getting better, to work harder than your competition, right? And you'll hear over and over again, these kids that come in early, they'll come in later. If they played a game, they'll go in the gym after the game and practice for another hour. Like it's maniacal how bad these kids want it. And once again, I've asked these coaches, is that nature, right? Are you born with it or can you nurture it? And I think a lot of it's nature, right? So you're either born with that drive or not. Heck, one of my neighbors is a Navy SEAL, and I asked him the same question. I said, can you take an average civilian and can you train them to become a Navy SEAL? And he's like, I don't think so, unless they've got it, right? That it factor.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can figure out how to make it to the NBA, Dave, I'll be a billionaire because I'll bottle that up and sell it at a premium to whoever wants to buy it. But I just don't know. I don't know if it exists or not. So going back full circle to the middle ground and all these trainers and stuff, you can hire all this stuff. You can, do everything, spend everything like LeBron does, $1 million a year on his body to make you the best player possible. But if you don't have it, if you can't make the big time shot under pressure, if you can't, inspire your teammates, if you don't want to work hard, it's all probably for naught. And how do you find those kids that have that? You can tell. You can tell. I can walk into a gym and see 100 kids and I could pick out, he's got it, he's got it, he's got a future. And how can you do that so quickly? Because you just know. It's like a star in Hollywood, right? You have 10 pretty women all lined up and you'd be like, she's going to be the star. It's just that it factor. So, not saying you can't have a good high school and college career by busting your butt on your own, but if you really want to make it to the elite level, there's something special that it's hard to put your finger on.
Mm. And in that it factor, add a G and an R to the front of it. It's the grit factor, actually. Yeah, it's like grit is almost inherently the thing, work ethic, persistence, right? And like just being able to battle through. And it's hard. I love that you want your daughters to have grit and that we all agree grit is fundamental, but it's not guaranteed. It really isn't. Even as much as we might do, we can invite it and encourage it, but it's not a guarantee. And so, I don't know. Do you think the it factor is a direct relation to grit? Is it
It's
different?
again, well, I go back to Angela Duckworth. If you like what you're doing, the grit is easier, right?
Well,
Because you
that's
like
what
it.
I was kind of struck by. Like, the it factor is available to kiddos if we do a good job of helping introduce them to a lot of variety, have fun with it, foster a passion, and then the skill set of it, and then the grit in general that will serve them in life largely. Like those are kind of the plays, and then the rest is the unfolding of, who knows, right? And if you get them to a point where you've given them grit, you've taught them how to play and have fun, and they've fostered a passion, then maybe you're investing in them really refining and sharpening things and not wasting your money on a garage gym that your son isn't going to use. Um, so I don't know. I'm just trying to map out in my own mind, like how would I potentially approach this thoughtfully, tactically, so that I would spend my time and energy and invite Leo to spend his time and energy wisely so he can, play at an elite level should he ever want to. And maybe not play a sport, but live at an elite level, right? So that's kind of fun to
Well,
play with.
let's talk about that. So when I was a kid growing up, I wanted to play basketball. I wanted to shoot on my goal. I wanted to watch it. I wanted to play it with my friends. My daughter has maybe twice picked up a basketball here and wanted to dribble with me. She's in piano lessons now. She never plays it on her own unless I prompt her. In lacrosse, she's in lacrosse right now. She never picks up a stick unless it's practice, right? So the moment we find something that she really likes and she'll practice without us telling her to,
mm,
that's something I'll pay attention to and be like, I think this might be a sport you dig. Now, mind you, I remember at 7 when I played basketball, I played defense on both ends. I didn't know what I was doing. I used to wear a long sleeve collared shirt under my jersey, like in sweatpants. Like I had no clue what I was doing. And my dad played pro, right? So like I
yeah,
do give kids a grace because you just don't know until things start clicking.
yeah,
So there shouldn't be any pressure at this age. There really
yeah,
shouldn't be. So I think if they find if we throw enough at the wall and she's like, Dad, I want to rock climb this weekend somewhere else besides the gym we go to. Oh, okay. Well, let's get you some shoes, maybe. Let's get you a harness. But I'm waiting to see what they tell me they want to do outside of playing with their stuffies or their toys.
right, right. Yeah, and seven's pretty early. There's still a lot of in it, but I can imagine it could happen fast. In the next 2 years, she could really hone in, right, and then and bloom and like show an aptitude for something that you didn't even know, and then she's on her way, perhaps. So you just get the role we're to play, if I'm hearing you correctly, is almost you got to put them in places, be the observer, and steward a path that has, uh, that's playful, passionate, skill sets there, and aptitude. And if grit is in the mix, they're at least on their way to something special, hopefully.
Yeah. And let's talk about something else outside of athletics. So my daughter went to her best friend's birthday party Friday. Her best friend's a year older and goes to a different school. So at this party, it was different girls, a little older. She's in a weird environment and she didn't do well, right? It was weepy, hanging around my wife, didn't go play, just kind of not doing great socially there. And then we got back, she was crying, had to talk about it. And I was telling my wife, like, that was good, right? Like, I know it's miserable for her, but like, she just got through some social practice of like, things aren't going my way. I don't know these girls. I'm not one-on-one with my best friend. And it didn't go well. And when my wife was stressing about it a little bit, I was thinking like, my daughter's going to remember that. And she's, it could go traumatic, or it could be like, okay, next time I'm in a situation where I don't know anybody, maybe I do A, B, or C. Right. So it's just like scraping a knee, like, cool, you can't go that fast on a bike now, or you can't run downhill on gravel. Hopefully from that situation, non-athletically, she learned, because you and I growing up, we did, when we're in social situations where sometimes went good and we made a mental note, and sometimes we buffed it and made a mental note like, shouldn't say that again in this crowd, or shouldn't do this action in this situation. That's part of grit too, man. Part
Cool.
of grit. And people that don't pick that up are daft, and they go through life, life's more difficult for them. So hopefully they're learning not just on the court or on the field, but in life. And now when my daughter goes into a difficult situation where she doesn't know anyone, that's going to take grit for her to like get out of her comfort zone and navigate it.
That's great, man. I love that this is, this seems like the typecasted roles of dad and mom, where the mom's like coddling a bit, and then you're going, actually, that might have been really good for her.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see, you can extrapolate how that experience is going to inform her, equip her, empower her, hopefully not traumatize her. But, you're kind of going, yeah, I wish it didn't happen to her in a way, but I'm also glad it happened, because it's inevitably going to happen in life. Life is full of these moments and these scenarios where you need mental grit, social grit, you just added to our list, physical grit, grit as this fundamental characteristic and approach to things is, I mean, it's front and center for me. Front
Yeah.
and
And
center.
look, one thing I say, and I've said it, I think my dad might have said it, but you got to get your reps in, right? Whether it's shooting free throws or jump shots or practicing a math problem or being in an uncomfortable situation, like the more reps you do, the easier it is, right? Just like you and I in the ice water, right? The first time I got in ice water, all my alarm systems went off. I was freaking out. It was not easy. It hurt. It was hard. And then I've been doing it for the past 8 years, quite a bit, to where now I have little games I play with myself. Like, oh, can I get in the ice water and not make a face? Can I get in and not wince? Can I get in and dunk my head to start versus wait until the end, right? And just every time you do things, uncomfortable or not, it just gets a little bit easier, a little bit less stressful. It still might be hard, but the more reps you do, the better, right? In life, in sports, in relationships. So yeah, she's getting reps in right now in life, weird social situations, which she's going to have.
Yeah.
Good gosh. You and I walk in situations, you're going to get ready to go on a business trip. You're going to walk in a room full of people you've never met before, right? And they're expecting something from you. But you've done that many a times, Dave, to where like, okay, if the room's like this, I'll adjust this way. If it's like this, I might say this sentence. You're still using it. You're going to use it till the day you die, right?
Yeah. You're right. You're right. I like this concept of reps, whether it's athletics or life. And the first time I walked into these rooms that I'm walking into tomorrow, um, I've been doing this work for 9 years, and I remember the first few years, and maybe even up until 4 years ago, admittedly, I'm like not necessarily ready for anything. These days, I'm ready for anything, because
Yeah.
and even if it's something I haven't seen yet, I now know how to handle uncertainty and people who might be resistant to, a leadership workshop, and maybe just aren't ready, they don't have the mental capacity to be there, whatever. Like, how do I meet people? I'm ready for anything because of the reps. So true. Cory, you said something about the movie Commando and Schwarzenegger. Like, I got to know what you're talking about. What about fatherhood and Commando? Like, what's the overlap there?
Yeah. So I saw Commando as a kid. I didn't like it. I like Predator. I like Terminator 2. Um, I did not dig Commando. I was like, oh, his daughter's 10. She got kidnapped. Like, all right, she's only 10 years old. Like, just, get over it. And then maybe not the minute, within a couple hours of my daughter being born, I was like, oh, I get Commando now. Like, he murdered 100 people to get back to his daughter who was kidnapped. And before you're, like I said about the Pixar movies being emotional now that I'm a dad, Commando make perfect sense. Where I was like, oh, I would murder 100 people to get back this baby who's only a few hours old, let alone a 10-year-old. So
Right,
just
right, right.
as a kid, you don't realize stuff, but like as an adult, I was like, yep, Commando, that plot now makes perfect sense.
Probably like the Liam Neeson films too, where he goes and rescues, kicks some ass. Yeah, I mean, it does. Having a kid totally changes our perspective, or it almost clarifies our perspective in a way. Um, and now you'd be willing to go kill 100 people. Of course you would. No doubt
Yeah,
about it.
as you
As I
would for
would.
your boy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So just kind of to take us home, sail into the sunset together. I'm curious, I just want you to picture, gosh, you got a 7 and 4 year old. So this is a while from now, where your daughters are sitting around a campfire, reminiscing about the life they had and the father and Josie and the mother. But you're here talking to me, so we'll narrow it down to you. And they're sharing tales of the father they had in Cory Heights. You're not there, and there's story and story and story. What are the three things you hope you're known for around this campfire? What do they
I'd say
sound like?
being Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think want to be adventurous, right? Like our daughters have been to almost every continent in their short lives, so we travel a lot to show them a lot of different things and different experiences because I feel like that's part of their education outside of school is like seeing how the other world works or other side of the world works. So when I see something on TV, either makes sense or it doesn't, or I can relate to that. So I think they'd say dad was very adventurous because when I'm at home with them, like playing dolls is not my skill set getting on the floor with them. I can do it. But to me, I thrive as a dad when like, okay, we're gonna go do something. Let's go try this restaurant or let's go to this museum. Or let's go hike this trail. Like I'm really good at camping with them. So I think one, they'll say I'm adventurous. Two, I mean, I think they know I love them very much. So they'll know that, dad was hard on us, but he did it because he loved us and wanted us to end up the young women we are today. And I think, because my dad was tough on me. I'm glad he was. Like now in hindsight, I know what he was doing and it worked, right? Yes, there was some trade-off with the cuddliness, but we've got that now. And that just wasn't his personality. And I am where I am today, sitting here talking to you today because of every experience I had with him and that came from him, right? So I'd say he loved us hard. And third, I would say that, dad gave us this skill set to look at things differently, right? To critically think, to not take things as face value. Like, oh, we're being told this. Does that make sense? Is there a reason we're being told something this way? Um, and hopefully I can still instill in them critical thinking to where, once again, if they have grit, kindness, a little bit of business sense, and that critical thinking, I think falls within that, I think they'll be served well.
Beautiful. No doubt about it. Cory, last thought. What's your podcast? Where can people check out your wisdom, your words beyond this podcast?
Yeah. So mine is niche. I appreciate you connecting me and spreading this out there. I'm very niche. I'm for families of kids looking to go to prep school or looking to learn more about college recruiting in the basketball world specifically. So I know I've got a pocket out there of dedicated parents that love this stuff, that are trying to do the best for their kids. So it's prepathletics.com is my website. If you're not into prep sports or anything, don't waste your time. It's not for you. It's very niche. I get it. But one thing I do want to say that it's a little thing I read. You read all these quotes from people in parenting and life. I know you get emails and you read books, and there's one quote I want to share with you in the audience that sticks with me and helps me become a better dad. And it's, if you're 85 years old, how much would you spend to come back to the moment you're in right now? And you give it all away. You give it all away. So right now, my wife and I joke, like, we are in the good old days right now. Let's not rush this. Let's be present. And we're both older parents. We had our kids in our early 40s and mid 40s. So like we've got less energy, but more patience. And so it's really trying to be present every day. And I'm like, yeah, if I'm 85-year-old coming back right now, I'm going to soak this in, everything, the crumbs on the floor, the maybe not listening to me, but the being silly, and just, hugging these little ones who in a few short years are going to want to be with their friends more than they're going to want to be with us. So we're in a finite window right now. I think we're in the good old days. And I'm just trying to be present with that. So the 85-year-old looking back, that's something I want to leave you and the viewers, because that's the one quote out of tens of thousands I've read that just comes back to me every day. And I'm just so glad I heard it. And I try to incorporate it.
Savor the good old days.
Yeah, man.
Awesome, man. Cory, awesome to be with you. Thanks for pouring your heart out, sharing your wisdom on all things fatherhood, especially in the athletics. It's got had me intrigued leading up to the conversation, and I think you gave me some good insights, and all the listeners as well. So we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for your time, Cory.
Thanks so much for having me, Dave.
You got it, man. We'll see you next time.
There you have it. You know, I believe the world is calling on us as fathers to step up and be stewards and shepherds of those around us. The times are interesting, and they are demanding more out of us than perhaps we once realized. It's because of that I want to celebrate and honor the ultimate role of fatherhood and set up dads for maximum impact. So thanks for being here. Don't forget to subscribe so you can catch the coming episodes. And above all, share this episode with a father you admire. See you on the next one.
Oh, Dad, go, Dad, here we go now. Oh, yeah, the ultimate role.